Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Amy and my channel is dedicated to all things arty. Today's video has been highly requested by my lovely subscribers and we're going to be taking a look at Prismacolor pencils versus the Polychromos pencils. So without further ado, let's jump right in. I'll be comparing both the Prismas and Polychromos and I'll be talking about their properties, qualities and the pros and cons of both as well, ranging from their durability, colour range, price, light fastness and so much more. I am showing the set of 72 pencils from the Prismacolor set, but the largest set from the Prismacolor pencils is the set of 150. And I'll be talking a little bit more about the sets from each brand later on in the video. I do own the largest set of the Polychromos pencils though, and that is the set of 120. So I'm just showing some up close shots of both the Prismas and the Polychromos. So if you don't own either of these pencil brands but you're considering buying them, you can get a good idea of the packaging and also what the pencils and trays look like inside as well. So you're going to get a really good idea of what they look like, and honestly at a first glance I really do feel like both pencil brands are presented really well. They're both in sturdy and well protected casings, and as you can see there are a lot of pencils. But of course there's a lot more info I want to give in this video about both pencil brands, so I'm just going to run through a list of all the important information I want to talk about. So let's start with the biggest difference between these two pencil brands. Prismacolors are wax-based pencils, so they are very soft and creamy, and they do have a slightly different texture to the Polychromos pencils, which are oil-based. So oil-based pencils are still fairly soft. They still do have that slightly creamy texture to the Prismacolors, but they have a harder lead, and that means they are good for detailing. So they do have that slightly different texture to them, so because the Prismacolors are a softer based pencil, they are great for layering colours on top of each other. Colours will blend well together and you can build so many layers with these pencils. The Polychromos are also good for layering. They are oil based as I said, but they still have a creamy texture, so again both pencils are pretty on par for layering. So I've just done a little swatch there to demonstrate. So next we're moving on to the detailing, and Prismas are fair when it comes to getting in those fine details. Because they are wax based, they are softer, and softer pencils create thicker and fuzzy lines, so they aren't the best for detailing. On the other hand, the Polychromos are great for creating details because they are oil based, so they have a harder lead that will keep its point to create details. So if you want to create fine details like fur texture, Polychromos are best. So a really popular coloured pencil technique is using a solvent. So how do these pencils work with a solvent? In all honesty, I think both the Prismas and the Polychromos work well with a solvent. I think the Prismas do have a slight edge though, and they will blend out a bit better with a solvent due to their softness. I find that sometimes pencil strokes can still show through when I blend with Polychromos. So for example, I find that if I'm blending out smooth textures like eyes I drew with Polychromos, everything blends out smoothly and softly and all the colours blend well together, but if I try and blend out fur texture, I have a lot of difficulty getting that smoothness with the solvent when I've used Polychromos. So I can still see some lines in the drawings, it looks fairly blotchy and I have to apply a lot of pressure onto the paintbrush to blend. I do feel that when I use Prismacolors or the LUMINANCE pencils, even the fur texture blends out so much better with a solvent. So although the Polychromos are fairly good with a solvent, I do prefer Prismacolors to use with a solvent. They seem to blend a lot better and a lot smoother in my opinion, and all the colours become so much more vibrant and saturated as soon as I blend out with a solvent. I feel that the Polychromos pencils aren't as vibrant and they are a bit duller after blending, and I also don't need to apply a lot of pressure onto the Prismacolor pencils to get them to blend, whereas I do with the Polychromos. So for me, I would give the Prismacolors that slight edge when it comes to a solvent, but honestly I would still use a solvent with the Polychromos pencils because you can still get good results, it's just slightly more work. So next is burnishing, and I think the Prismacolors are great for burnishing. If you aren't really sure what burnishing is, then it's basically when you apply layers of coloured pencils to the paper and then you use a hard pressure to blend those colours together and flatten out the tooth of the paper. So burnishing is a technique you will use a lot for portraits because, for example, skin tones are a really soft and smooth texture, so you want to use pencils that blend well together, and the Prismacolors and wax-based pencils do. The Polychromos are okay for blending. I find that if I'm just burnishing a small area, they are great, but I do struggle with burnishing larger areas because they are a harder lead, so they're more scratchy and harder to smooth out. But that's not to say that you can't, it just might take you a bit more time to blend the pencils out with Polychromos. So next, let's talk about the sets. The Prismacolors' largest set is 150 colours, which is a huge range of coloured pencils, and they also have smaller sets as well. So like I said, I'm using the set of 72, but you can also get really small sets of 12 or 24. So if you want to save a bit of money and opt for a smaller set, you can. And the great thing is, even if you do own a set of 12 pencils, you can still mix and blend colours together to create an even larger colour range. So you don't need to buy every single pencil to create great drawings from. I've actually created some pieces just using a few pencils before, so even a few pencils will get you a long way. And I'm just showing all of the available sets from the Prismacolor range, and they range from 12 all the way up to 150 pencils. So that is a huge range and the largest set of coloured pencils I know of. Another fantastic thing about these pencils is that you can buy them open stock. So I've bought individual pencils from Rainbow Fine Art Pencils, and they are really cheap on there, ranging from about 60p per pencil to £1.80 per pencil. You can also buy really cheap replacement pencils from Amazon as well, and they will ship to most countries. That is the same for the Polychromos pencils. So their largest set is 120 pencils, so slightly less than the Prismacolor pencils, but honestly I don't think there's really anything between these pencils in terms of colour range. Both sets have a huge range of pencils from both vibrant colours to more earthy and skin tones. Again, the Polychromos pencils can be bought in smaller sets, so again you can get a small set of 12 all the way up to 120, and you can also buy Polychromos in open stock as well. So if you need a replacement pencil, you have the option of buying individual pencils as well. I buy replacement Polychromos pencils from either Art Discount or Jackson's Art Supplies. So a big downside for me with the Prismacolors is their wax bloom. So that's where if you hold up your drawing to the light, it creates a glare from the wax pencils, whereas the Polychromos has no wax bloom at all. Another huge negative with the Prismacolor pencils is their light fastness, and light fastness for me is probably the most important quality of coloured pencils. So if you are a professional artist and you are creating artwork to sell, the one thing you're going to need from your coloured pencils is a high light fastness rating. So light fastness is the ability a colour has to retain its colour pigment and its resistance to fading in natural or sunlight over time. So say you created a portrait drawing for a client, you will want to use pencils that are resistant to fading or discolouring. So the last thing you want is a customer coming back to you unhappy within a few months because the drawing you did for them has become faded or discoloured. And unfortunately, quite a lot of the Prismacolor pencils have a poor light fast rating, especially a lot of the pinks, blues and purples. So this is a main reason why I won't use these pencils for client drawings. Prismacolors follow the ASTM D69016 light fast rating scale, and a lot of these pencils are numbered 4 or 5, so 4 is fair and 5 is poor, so that means these colours will fade or discolour very quickly. That definitely is a huge disappointment with these pencils. I'll only really use Prismacolor pencils if I'm creating practice pieces or just pieces for myself, so it is definitely something you need to think about if you are intending to create drawings to sell. The Polychromos pencils, on the other hand, fare much better with light fastness, so they actually follow the blue wall scale, and I've got a picture on the screen right now explaining what the blue wall scale is, so feel free to pause the video and give it a read. The blue wall scale follows a 3-2-1 score, with 3 being excellent, 2 good and 1 fair. Only 2 out of 120 pencils fall under a score of 1, and those pencils are the light magenta and the manganese violet. Apart from those 2 pencils, all the other pencils are rated excellent or good. The Polychromos chart is also a great chart to download because it tells you what pencils are in each set. So if you want to download this Lightfast rating list, you can from the Faber Castell website. It lists every pencil on there by name and number. It tells you what Lightfast rating each pencil has and which sets they're in. So next, let's talk about cost. So the Prismacolor pencils are actually very cheap. The set of 150 pencils comes in at around £100 on Amazon, so compared to the Luminance pencils, you're looking at least £100 cheaper than those pencils. The Polychromos pencils are a bit more expensive, so for 120 pencils you're looking at around £150, so that is around £50 to £60 more expensive than the Prismacolors. But the main reason why these pencils are more expensive is because they have a high Lightfast rating plus higher qualities, which I'll talk about more in a second. So really, I do think that you get what you pay for. The colour range from both sets of pencils is faultless, so I think both the Prismacolor pencils and Polychromos pencils has a great colour range. The Prismacolor pencils has a slightly larger set by about 30 pencils, but I do feel that both sets have a lot of the same colours, so I don't really think that matters. I think both sets have a great range of vibrant colours, earthy tones and skin tones. I do think the Polychromos is lacking a little bit in skin tones, but that's just my opinion, and in all honesty I'll use the Prismas or Luminance pencils for portraits because I find them easier to blend and burnish, so it's not something that overly bothers me. As I said, you can create new mixes and blends of colours as well by blending colours together, so both sets offer so much in terms of colour range. So now I want to talk about one of the most important factors of these pencils, their quality. This is where I really feel these pencils are two worlds apart, so the Prismacolor pencils are very cheap and poor quality. There are so many issues with these pencils that really let them down as a brand. So for example, Polychromos pencils are well made. They're quite thick with a strong lead that is centered in the wood casing. The wood casing itself has a protective barrel on the end of it, so that means if you drop one of these pencils, the barrel on the end protects the lead from breaking, whereas the Prismacolor pencils don't have a casing on them. The lead in Prismacolor pencils is extremely brittle and fragile. Just one accidental drop of this pencil can result in the lead shattering all the way up the pencil, and if that happens every time you try and sharpen the pencil, the lead will just keep breaking. As I said, Prismacolor pencils are also off-centered, so what this means is there will be a lot of concentrated pressure on just one point of the pencil, so every time you apply too much pressure, the lead will just break because it can't take that pressure. The Polychromos, on the other hand, are centered, and I haven't experienced any breakages from them other than a couple of occasions here and there. The Prismacolor pencils will also break during and after sharpening as well, so I get through Prismacolor pencils twice as fast as any other brand. Some of the Prismacolors I have are totally unusable, so it's a real problem and a waste of money as well because you have to keep replacing them. So as I said, I really do feel the Polychromos pencils are far superior to the Prismacolor pencils. They're high quality and well made. Once you've completed a drawing, the one thing you don't want is smudging, and I find that both pencil brands do smudge a little bit, so I would definitely recommend fixing your drawings after completion. The last thing you want is to work on a piece for hours and then smudge it right at the end, so a fixative spray will really help with this. So lastly, what are these pencil brands best for? I think that Prismacolor pencils are great for portraits because, like I said, wax-based pencils are soft and creamy and great for blending. They're also great for cartoons, whereas the Polychromos pencils are great for animals and fur texture because they're really good for those fine details. So my final thoughts, I would rate the Prismacolor pencils at a 5.5 out of 10, and there are a few reasons why I rate them low. So although they have quite a few good qualities about them, there are a lot of cons to them that really let them down for me. For example, they are good for layering and also burnishing as well, and they're quite cheap, and obviously they do have that variation of colours and sets, but there are a few things that really let them down for me. So some of the cons for me are definitely light fastness. Because of the poor light fast rating, I wouldn't sell drawings created with Prismacolors. Prismacolors are also extremely poor quality, so this means that there are a lot of breakages, they aren't very durable, and there's a lot of pencil wastage as well. So although they are a cheaper brand, you'll be paying more in the long run replacing pencils than you would pay for the Polychromos. So those two things really are a huge letdown for me. With poor light fastness, it means I can't sell artworks created with Prismacolor, and considering I create pet portrait drawings, that is a huge issue for me. I also want to be using good quality pencils that I know are going to be durable and a brand worth investing in. As an artist, I want to use products that are high quality so I can produce the best works from. So what about the Polychromos? I would rate them much higher at an 8 out of 10. For me, there are so many pros to these pencils. They're really well made and high quality. They have a great light fast rating, meaning the colours will be very resistant to fading. They have a great colour range with a vast range of sets and open stock pencils too. And I find that you can use these pencils for almost any drawing. There are a couple of minor cons to them, so for example, like I said with a solvent, they can be a bit harder to blend, and they also aren't as good for burnishing because they are a harder lead. But they really are just minor things for me, and you can still get great results with these pencils. I think if you're just wanting to practice your drawing skills or just create work for your own portfolio, then there really is nothing wrong with using Prismacolors, and I'm not saying you can't create good drawings from Prismacolors, because you can, but if you want to take your artwork to the next level and create drawings to sell or exhibit, the Polychromos are far superior to the Prismacolors. So that actually just finishes off today's video. I really hope you enjoyed this comparison between the Prismacolors and Polychromos, and let me know what comparison you would like to see next. If you are new around here, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn the bell on so you'll be notified of all my future videos. Anyway guys, that's it for today's video, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye!